This is a CBS News special report. I'm Jeff Glow reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York. Good afternoon. And there is a verdict, or at least a partial verdict, in the Paul Manafort trial in Alexandria, Virginia. Paula Reed's been covering this case extensively. We want to go right there now. So, Paula, as far as we understand, at least one guilty verdict so far.
That's right. This is the first conviction secured by special counsel Robert Mueller in his investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 campaign. Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort has been found guilty of individual income tax return, filing a false individual income tax return. This is specific to his 2010 income tax return. Now, he was charged with 5 different counts of this same crime. For years from 2010, you hear the crowd here at the courthouse is cheering. He was charged with 5 different counts of tax return fraud from 2010 to 2014. So far, we only have one of the counts. That's at the 2010 tax return. He has been found guilty. We are waiting for additional counts. There was a total of 18 different counts filed against Mr. Manafort. The jury informed the judge that they were not able to come to a decision on at least 10 of those counts. But, Jeff, we don't know which counts they could not come to a decision on. So we're here waiting. We have runners coming down here to the camera to give us updates. But this is incredibly significant because this is the first conviction secured by special counsel.
And this is what we see on the to the right. You can't see this right now on the screen, Paula, but we see the runners coming in and out. These are the folks coming with the information. So if you need to pause and read something over, please do. Just so I can, and Paul, also feel free to interrupt me here, but we're talking about 3 different waves of verdicts here. The first one you just got. Right. The second one.
And we have several more. We have several more here, Jeff. He has been found guilty of 5 counts of tax fraud. So this is filing false individual income tax returns between 2010 and 2014. We also have 1 guilty count for him failing to disclose these foreign bank accounts that he held. Prosecutors allege that he earned tens of millions of dollars from his lobbying work overseas, but failed to reveal the fact that he was actually earning this money. That's why he was charged with failing to properly file his income tax returns and also failing to disclose foreign bank accounts where he's allegedly stashing this money. So far, what we have is that he has been found guilty on 8 different counts, 5 counts of individual tax return fraud, 1 count of failing to disclose a foreign bank account, and at least 2 counts of bank fraud. That's where he allegedly applied for loans to help supplement his income, but provided false information to the banks. So far, the 8 counts that the jury could actually come to a decision on are all guilty. These are the first convictions secured by special counsel Robert Mueller.
And so the 10 counts that they can't, at this point, that they can't come to a decision on, and again, it appears the judge is proceeding, or going to let them proceed with this partial verdict. These 10 counts then would mostly apply to the loans that the prosecutors had an issue with how they were secured.
Exactly, and having covered this case over the past few weeks, this is not a surprise. The strongest case for the prosecution was the tax fraud. That is in many ways a paperwork crime. It was supported by a significant amount of paper evidence, supported by dozens of witnesses that the jury heard from. But we saw the questions that the jury submitted last Thursday suggested they had some concerns about his failure to disclose certain foreign bank accounts and whether he really did intentionally fail to disclose them, or whether they believe the defense's theory, which is that he farmed this out to other people, including his business associate, Richard Gates. It appears that the jury believes there was at least reasonable doubt about those charges. And then when it came to the fact that they alleged that he applied for loans and provided false information, each of these 5 different loans, Jeff, each of them were a different set of facts, and it did appear that some people could believe there was, in fact, reasonable doubt about whether or not he committed bank fraud for those loans. So this verdict is not a huge surprise, having been in the courtroom over the past few weeks.
Paula, if you're Robert Mueller right now, what are you thinking based on what you're seeing? If you're the president right now, what are you thinking based on what you're seeing?
Well, if you're Robert Mueller, I think you'll say, you know what, I'll take it. The counts that we did get were all guilty. There's another trial coming up for Mr. Manafort in September in Washington, D.C. on similar charges. Now, those charges will focus more on the kind of work that he was doing, on his lobbying work that he failed to disclose that he was doing on behalf of a pro-Russian Ukrainian politician. This is more about his finances, his income, and the fact that he allegedly failed to disclose some of it. So I think, Robert, if you're Robert Mueller right now, you say, you know what, I'll take this. If you're the president, I think you're going to try to seize on the fact that the jury could not come to a conclusion or a consensus on the majority of these counts. If you're the president, I think you're going to point out the fact that the FBI talked to Paul Manafort and Richard Gates several years ago and chose not to bring charges. And I think you're going to sort of hammer on the fact that they couldn't come to a consensus and try to continue to push the argument that this is a politically motivated prosecution. It's also now up to the president whether or not he wants to pardon his former campaign chairman on these convictions.
Divided country, divided verdict so far. Paula Reed, let's check in with Major Garrett, who's at the White House, with more on all of this. Major, from your perspective,
sure.
Tell us what you make of what you're seeing here.
Well, the White House will say what Paula said, that all of these charges, the convictions, deal with financial crimes now convicted, Paul Manafort has been, that did not have to do with any of his time working with or around Donald Trump or his campaign. The White House has tried to put as much distance as possible between these legal proceedings and Paul Manafort's work as general chairman for the Trump campaign, and a vital part of that campaign, about May to July, crucial to securing and then holding all the delegates necessary to make Donald Trump the Republican nominee. And the White House has said it's unfair to tar the president with these financial misdeeds of Paul Manafort that occurred long before that political activity. What's an uncomfortable truth for this White House is that Paul Manafort, implicated, now convicted, and Rick Gates, who was a witness in this trial and who also admitted to misdeeds, both were central figures in the Trump campaign. And even after Paul Manafort left the Trump campaign, Rick Gates stayed on for a long time, all through the fall campaign. Then he was a significant fundraiser and decision maker within the president's inauguration committee. So you have two people who have admitted to wrongdoing, one convicted of it, Paul Manafort, who did have significant roles in the Trump campaign. So try as the White House has to distance itself from who Paul Manafort is and what he did and what he's alleged to have done and now convicted of, these two stories do commingle. The president is flying right now to West Virginia. I guarantee you his eyes are on another legal matter in New York. Michael Cohen and his fixer Michael Cohen, about ready to plead to other charges that could also have significant repercussions and implications for the president, not just legally, but politically.
Yeah, we'll take a picture here quickly, Major, of the courthouse in New York where Michael Cohen is pleading guilty this afternoon on this remarkable legal afternoon with both Michael Cohen pleading guilty and now Paul Manafort at least found guilty on some charges, 8 of 18 counts in his fraud trial. You're looking at Lower Manhattan here right now. This was a case that was referred to the Southern District of New York by Robert Mueller's team. We're waiting to get more details on exactly what what the charges that Michael Cohen is pleading guilty to, but maybe we can circle back to Paula Reed here, who is in Virginia but has covered the Cohen case extensively. Paula, if you're with us, and I know you're still waiting for a lot of information here on Paul Manafort, what's your guidance so far on Michael Cohen and this plea?
We expect this plea deal will not require any cooperation against the president. He is not flipping on President Trump. This is expected to be a straight plea deal, the kind you'd see with many defendants going to federal court. He is going to plead guilty to several charges, which we expect will be tax fraud and some campaign finance violation. And Jeff's sources have suggested that we watch very carefully on what he admits to in connection with a campaign finance violation. As you may remember, the Justice Department has been investigating Mr. Cohen for possible campaign finance violations related to certain hush money payments that he negotiated to keep women quiet about their alleged affairs with the president. So this will not require his cooperation against the president or anyone else, but it could be incredibly significant depending on the specifics of what he is admitting in connection to campaign finance violation.
Okay, so as you said, Michael Cohen not flipping on the president, but then the special counsel could then use the information from the Cohen plea.
They could. He could provide information between the time he pleads today and when he's sentenced in a couple weeks or months, and that could help his sentencing. But sources close to the special counsel investigation tell me that Michael Cohen is considered a problematic witness. He is not considered to be a viable source of information because even if he was to flip, if they were to make it to trial, as you see here in the Manafort case, put him on the stand, there are concerns that he could be easily discredited or undermined. So he is not really considered to be a valuable asset to special counsel. But if he comes up with some piece of physical evidence or some other testimony he wants to offer between now and when he's sentenced, it's possible Mueller could take that cooperation in exchange for a lighter sentence. But as of right now, that's not what we understand he has agreed to do.
Okay, Paula, I'm just hearing in my ear now. Our understanding is now that Michael Cohen has the guilty plea involves a prison sentence up to 5 years and 3 months, which certainly sounds significant. What else then? What else happens next with Michael Cohen?
Well, he won't be sentenced today. This is what the deal that he has struck between the Justice Department and his defense attorneys. That's what they're going to recommend to a judge. But a judge can go harder on him. They can be a little bit lighter. It also depends on his conduct between now and when he is sentenced. But this is an incredibly significant day. You have two of the president's top associates, both in federal court, one pleading guilty to charges, another being convicted on 8 counts.
So, and quickly, Paula, just tell me, Manafort convicted on 8 of 18 counts. What happens to the other 10 counts then?
He could be retried on those counts because this was a mistrial, but he has another trial in September. I would expect that the special counsel will wait and see how that case goes, and then they will decide whether or not they want to spend the resources to retry him on those other 10 counts.
Okay, Paula Reed, thank you for your reporting on both stories. Back to Major Garrett quickly. Major, as you sift through this legal maze here this afternoon, now getting new information on Michael Cohen and his guilty plea. Put that in perspective from D.C. for us.
Well, as Paula said, the key is what does he plead to and how specific is this charge and the evidence behind it on campaign finance violations? Is it only related to actions Michael Cohen took that have no larger implication for President Trump's knowledge, either as a candidate or president? Or does it suggest that the president did know something about it? And if it does, that will undermine the president's sharp denials, repeated denials. He knew nothing about this, and it could place him in some form of legal jeopardy. But those who I've talked to at the White House are much more afraid of the political ramifications, meaning if Michael Cohen says something that suggests the president has been less than truthful about this, that could damage him politically more so than legally.
Okay, Major Garrett, thank you very much. So you've got a couple slow unfolding legal dramas that have been playing out for weeks or months now that both seem to come to a conclusion within an hour of each other, and that is Paul Manafort being found guilty on 8 of 18 charges in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia. That is the screen on your right. On your left, New York City, as Michael Cohen now pleads guilty to charges that could put him in prison for up to 5 years and 3 months. We're going to have much more about all of this on your local news on this CBS station, on our 24-hour streaming news service, CBSN, and right here tonight on the CBS Evening News. Until then, I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News in New York.
For news 24 hours a day, go to CBSNews.com.